There is a growing number of business leaders in the United States, including Citadel Ken Griffin and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, among others, sounding the alarm about the rising national debt that can reach $141 trillion, that's with a T, by 2054, according to the latest CBD report. Our next guest testified on the Hill to talk about his scenario, unfortunately, that he believes could have the economy, and if nothing's done to revert the course. Joining us right now is Joao Gomes, professor of finance at the Wharton School. You think we have a real big problem ahead, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but just lay out how bad the problem is and how quickly it becomes a problem.
Good morning, Andrew. How quickly is hard to say, but I think there's real urgency, and I think people are not really appreciating that. I think real interest rates are high, and they're going to, and this is a sort of a momentous change relative to the last 15, 20 years. I think all the trends that I see on real interest rates point towards higher rates. It is true, growth rates are a little higher. We'll see how long that lasts. That's the one thing that that is a positive the last 2 or 3 years. Some of that is demographics, immigration, and so on. But real interest rates are significantly higher, and I think all the projections that you see, everything you see, is very benign. It forgets that interest rates are high. It forgets that the 2017 tax cuts are set to expire in 2025. It forgets that capital inflows are going to be reduced and are already significantly reduced. So a lot more of the debt is going to have to be funded internally. These projections, basically, if you're wrong because you're too pessimistic, if productivity turns out to be a little better than you expect, it still doesn't change the trend. But if it turns out to be a lot worse than you expect, or even a little worse than you expect, you go to 200% debt to GDP ratio in 30 years. What really added urgency to me is I think we'll have a serious debate next year about the tax cuts and whether to extend them or not. And I think we just can't afford them, honestly.
You think we can't afford them?
I don't think we can. I know, Joe might not like me to say this, but I just don't think we can afford them.
You know what's going up, Professor, is in a emergency,
mandatory.
But in a non-pandemic, non-emergency situation, so spending's going up too. We're right where
I agree.
We're right where we were in terms of what we needed to spend during an emergency situation, and as it always happens with the government, we're not going back down to pre-pandemic levels. We're staying where we are and going up. So I understand what you're saying about the tax cut, but that just letting those things expire isn't going to solve anything. We need to address spending across the board.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. I would only say, and I don't know if it's worth debating this here, a lot of that is some of those things have expired. It's just that some of these mandatory programs that we have, some of these entitlements have, they've just continued to grow. So overall spending is about the same level, but largely there's been a little bit of a composition change.
Part of it.
I agree. That is.
But can we just talk about the potential for a crisis? And the reason I mentioned a crisis, the timing. And I know you said it's hard to predict a crisis and when that's going to happen. But let's talk about it, because unfortunately, our form of government, for better or worse, doesn't seem to operate unless there is a crisis and the clock is about to hit midnight and something terrible is about to happen on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think to me, an eye-opening experience, and I've been talking about these things forever, but I never thought it was as urgent as right now. I think an eye-opening experience was definitely what happened in the UK in 2022. That's one episode where a government that sits, I think, financially better position than we are now, just loses confidence of the bond market just like this, right? In the space of a few days. That's something that could definitely happen to us next year, right? We announce a fiscal path that is just, markets just wake up to it and they say it's unsustainable. That could happen.
We've been crying wolf.
I know.
It looks like we've been crying wolf, and it hasn't happened. Yep. That's a very bad lesson to learn. And that's where MMT comes from, and that's where we've got the reserve currency. We can do whatever we want. And now we spent a lot of money in the economy. Look, the GDP's great, unemployment. These are bad lessons to learn when they can come home to roost very quickly. And you're right, the rug could get pulled right out from underneath the bond market probably when you got this much supply. Really? Well, and you're at Wharton. You may know what you're talking about.
So we want to
a little bit. I know a little bit.